thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Coaching Q&A. So it's an opportunity to ask any questions that you have, grassroots related or football in general. We just want to have a chat. That's what the next hour is. With me is Mark Rivers, FA coach developer for Barts and Bucks. He's just a good morning all. And hello, Mark.
Hello.
Hi. And alongside Mark is Mitch Woodward. So Mick's an FA affiliate tutor, delivers level 1s, 2s, and some safeguarding. Just to let you know, everyone will be on mute apart from the people talking effectively, just so there's no interference. If you've got a question, there's a little raise hand option, which is near your name, I believe. I never get to see it because I'm always this side of it. Or just chat. Or if there's a pause and there's no one talking, just unmute yourself. But if you just keep it one person at a time, that'd be great. Meeting will be recorded, so we can share to those who are unable to make it, or if you want to view it again. And finally, just so you know, as Bob's found out, the video, everyone can see your video. So if you are wanting to eat, that's great, not a problem at all, but just to let you know that people will be able to see it, just in case you want it to be private. So you can take that off if you wanted to. But let's just go to the next slide, because it should be not working. There you go. Yeah, so Q&A. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this off. So that didn't work at all. Stop sharing so we can see people's faces. There we go. So I'm going to start with, we had a couple of questions before today. Sorry, my phone thing isn't working. There we go. So I'm just going to quickly go to them. We had a question from Jay Lovejoy, who I believe is here. Good morning, Jay.
Morning.
So, Jay, how you doing? You all right?
All right.
Do you remember your question, or shall I repeat it for you?
You can repeat it first.
It's a big word in there, isn't it? Is the psychological element of football thought of and worked on enough within coaching? And why? Elaborate, Jay, on that?
Yeah, just our coach is fully aware of kind of the psychological impact that they're having on each individual player, rather than focus on the environment or physical development. Are they focusing enough on the psychological aspect, and how much of a part of the game do you think the psychological aspect is?
Want me to jump on that, Rivo, first?
Go on, mate.
Yeah, morning. I totally agree with you. I think it's how the newer courses have evolved over the recent years. Obviously, with the full corner model, it implements that. But I'm a firm believer, if you haven't got the sort of social and psychological corner up to speed, you know, technical and physical is not going to come. It's getting those players on board and understanding your players first before you can then move on to that. You know, you might put a practice on around, say, this, you know, we're focusing technically on passing. But if you don't know your players, what they're like psychologically, Mick's obviously done his session this morning, was talking about game-related practices. You know, what players need what, you know, at what time. You know, so I'm with you, but I feel that the way the courses have changed and incorporate that four corner model, definitely there's a massive development in that psychological corner over the last few years. I look back to when I done my level 1, level 2, 17, 18 years ago. You know, there was pretty much nothing on there, whereas now it's a massive part of the new courses, which it needs to be.
It is a big part, but they've also got rid of the psychology courses, which I think would have helped coaching progression.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I would agree with that as well. I've done the courses on that, and they're very beneficial. I'm not too sure whether there's more coming in or they'll be added back in. I'm not too aware of that. Rivo?
I just think you've hit the nail on the head, really. That it's a fairly simple, diagram, that four corner board with technical, physical, social, psychological. And I think where we can as coaches, we need to try and be hitting those four corners in our sessions. And I think at times we're probably guilty of maybe just thinking that we need to focus on the technical aspects and the technical outcomes of that session. But as Mitch has alluded to there, you know, you're going to be hitting those other corners as well. So there's going to be some social trade-offs, physical demands placed on it, and psychological as well. So I think the most important thing probably in that is knowing your players, getting to know your players, knowing who needs a little bit extra in any one of those four corners. If you look at a lot of your favourite players, us as coaches, I'm pretty confident to say that they would have something in each of those four corners. So there's been players that I would have grown up playing with thinking, how come I'm a professional footballer? When actually you look at it, technically proficient, physically good range of movement, can get around the pitch, but potentially they're missing something in the social box and psychological box. So, Jay, I fully agree and endorse what you're saying. I think more needs to be done in those sort of areas. Whether I mean we do incorporate that on some of our courses anyway, but whether there is a return to the specifics of that, I think you make a valid point.
I think the difficult thing is that all the other corners are quantifiable. So you could say he run 5.7 kilometres in the game today, or you could say he hit the top corner 8 out of 10 times. But you can't quantify the psychological aspect a lot of the time. How many times does a coach actually sit down and try and quantify the happiness in a child, or how the sport is affecting the child, as opposed to how is the child affecting the sport?
Yeah,
It's not quantifiable as much. It's more of a qualitative.
I think as well, just touching on that, Jay, that's a great point. I think as that as well. I think you'll struggle to, because certain children will say certain things to please different people. You know, definitely coaches and parents. You know that you've probably done it yourself a lot of times, where you say, you know, any questions to a group, you get no questions back because they feel quite insecure at that time to then put their hand up and say, yeah, do you know what, Mitch? I don't quite understand this, but they'll come and then pull you on the side. So I think you're right. It's very difficult to manage that, engage that.
And I think all of this, it's what we can do ourselves. We need to be doing more as coaches. So even thinking how you phrase your questions, thinking how you pitch it to certain individuals, or individually or collectively. Even that one there, I've been on many a course where someone said, "Anyone got any questions?" No, because it's probably pitched at the wrong time when I want to get out the door or just before lunch. But if you phrase it and say things like, "What questions do you have for me?" it puts a different spin on it. So it probably goes back to plan, do, review, spending equal time planning it, doing it and reviewing it. And in your planning, as difficult as it is, and it's okay for me sitting here with the England badge on and likewise with Mick and having probably ample time being able to plan things. And I get when we're working full time, it's difficult to do that, but there is value in it if you can spend that time planning out, looking at the individuals, how best can I challenge them tonight. But Jay, you make some really good points there.
Cheers.
Thanks, Jay. Next question from Zing Dong.
Hi, Zing.
Hello, Zing. Press it again, Zing. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Zing,
Can you hear
how
me?
you doing?
Hi.
Yes.
Good,
yes.
Mark.
How are
Nice
you
to see
doing?
you.
I haven't spoken to you for a long time. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So, Zing, you have a question about how to balance between develop player and winning the game.
Yeah. You know, my team is 6 years old team. So this year is 7 years. So we played a league last year. You know, the league has particularly rules that it's each game separated 3 quarters, and each quarter has 12 minutes. But the players who play in the first quarter cannot play at the second quarter.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
So the third quarter, so the player can play no rules.
Okay. Yeah.
So normally, you know, if I chose my stronger players play in the first quarter, maybe we can win.
Yeah.
Maybe we can win the game. But you know, they can't play at the second quarter. So the other players maybe not good enough. So maybe we lost big points in the second quarter, and maybe we can't come back in the third quarter. So we lost the game.
Sorry, Zin, what age are your players?
6 years.
6 years old?
Yeah.
So I would probably not even worry about the result. In my opinion, my experience, as long as the game's at, if you're losing 10-0, winning 10-0, there's a bit of an issue either way. I would, with the equal game time, which is the way it should be, the way grassroots football's gone, which is, great for everyone. I would try not too much to focus on winning the game. And I think if we as coaches make that the be all and end all, it's only going to rub off on your players, on your parents, and then it's just going to become quite a toxic sort of atmosphere. Whereas, I coach a grassroots team myself, under 10s, and honestly, if we lose or win, 4-3, 3-2, whatever that might be, I'm honestly not bothered, because it's been a close game. It's been engaging for the players. Like I said, we've won games quite convincingly, which is pretty boring, to be honest. We've lost games where the girls have become disengaged. I wouldn't focus too much on winning with 6-year-olds whatsoever. I'd focus on getting them all equal game time. If you're finding yourself losing quite severely, it might be a case that you speak to the opposition manager and you can put an extra player on, or you might think a bit strategically of how you sort of manage your equal game time. So you might put your stronger players, try and have at least a couple on in each quarter, so you're not losing heavily. And the flip side of that, if you're winning, you might say to the opposition, put an extra player on, put 2 extra players on, because winning 10-0 is no good for anyone. It's going to be more of a challenge if the opposition have got more players on. But I wouldn't entertain winning too much. It is important, definitely, but it's just not making it it's not winning at all costs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think that but it's difficult, from the parents. If the team not win, maybe they can't get the kids go to the training again. So that's difficult.
It is. But if you've got a rationale of why, there's a lot of documents, there's a lot of stuff out there that why equal game time, rotating positions is going to be beneficial for everyone. And it's that communication with parents, that those building relationships, which I spoke about on the level 1, the level 2, the safeguard, and it's building them relationships and trusting the process, getting the parents to trust the process. Because if you're not playing those weaker players, they're not gonna develop. Development comes before winning. Winning will come later. If you're developing in the right way, you've got a rationale of why you rotate positions, why they're getting equal game time, why you want them to stay on the ball and master the ball and not just smash it up the pitch. Parents do buy into that. I've seen it firsthand. If you've got all the sort of backup information there to provide the parents, like I say, it does work long term. Anything, Rivo?
Yeah, just I think it's philosophy dependent, some of this as well. So I think with the England badge on, we want to promote football development. Of course, we do. And if you are promoting football development, then obviously it is about equal game time, and score doesn't become important. But equally, I get if you're working in a non-league environment, and your 3 points on a Saturday depend on people's jobs and livelihoods, and I think it's a different story. But by and large, in grassroots football, where most of us are working, for me, it has to be about development and developing that individual. And as Mitch has alluded to, you need to get the buy-in from the stakeholders that are involved, and by that I mean the parents and the external factors that you probably aren't involved on the pitch, but that need to know and understand your philosophy and why you're doing certain things. Apologies for what I'm going to say now, but there's a jam donut story that I tell people on the courses. But I was coaching an under-11 team, and there was an academy player in the team, and we were getting beat 1-0 with 2 minutes to go, and it was a private school, so they'd get like teas afterwards, so sandwiches and cakes and things, and we got it back. I think it was in the last 2 minutes to draw the game, so we ended up drawing 1-1. And I was quite emotional afterwards, and so pleased with the players. And I went into this inspirational sort of team talk and got down to their level, and that was amazing. You implemented everything that we spoke about, and the lad that had scored the equaliser, his hand went up straight away. I said, "Yeah, go on, what have you got?" He said, "Do you still think they're serving jam donuts upstairs?" With that, I just thought, you know what? That's where his mind's at after that game. The score, as soon as that final whistle had gone, yeah, he jumped up and down like the rest of them, but then it was gone. I think sometimes it's us as coaches and managers that take it on and internalize it over the hours after post game. So for me, it's about development. My son plays for a team on a Saturday and a Sunday, and unfortunately, his coaches are all about winning. So his development I've seen plummet. So I think in one weekend he probably had 10 minutes over the course of Saturday and Sunday, and I've seen him really plummet. He hasn't moved on. He hasn't progressed, and I think that's where coaching is. That's coaching. If you can coach someone like my son and motivate him and get him back to a place where he was before and get him from A to B, whatever that is, I think that's coaching.
Is that all right, Zing?
Yeah. Cheers, Mitchell and Mark.
Thanks, Zing.
Cheers, Zing, mate. Gonna go to Gabor now. He's got a question. Hello, Gabor.
Hi, Gabor.
There you go. Hello, mate.
So, which session would you prefer more, in possession or out of possession, and why? Because when I started coaching, I love in possession sessions, but now after a couple of years, I love out of possession sessions. When I've been on my level 1 and 2, I struggle to deliver a session out of possession, but now I just love out of possession. It changed my philosophy through the years.
If you're asking me, I'd always gravitate to in possession. I like to see players on the ball and look at them working on creativity and things like that. But you know what? Realistically, it's probably as individuals we spend under a minute with the ball at our feet. So invariably, you could argue that we probably need to do more stuff out of possession when we haven't got the ball. What does that look like in terms of our individual shape and our team shape? And I always remember my coach saying to me, and it didn't really register at the time when I was about 14, but he always used to say, if you're not in possession, are you in position? If you're not in possession, are you in position? And I suppose that relates to you as an individual and you as a team also. But yeah, that's interesting. I would have always said, Gabor, in possession practices, and that's probably still, they probably still dominate my delivery, probably 80-20 maybe. But when you look at stats and things, yeah, I probably need to do a bit more out of possession. What about you, Mitch?
Yeah, similar to you, definitely in possession. But I think it's important when we're, even coaching adults and senior level, that if you're working on a defending practice, it's the terminology that you use needs to be right for that group. Like it's been mentioned on the podcast before, we're talking about an out of possession, with a group of under sevens, it's going to be, can you stay close to your mate? Rather than saying, right, let's be compact, because they might not know what that means. Can you try and get close to your mate, or can you help your mate? Where can we go to try and help your friend? You're talking at senior levels and you're talking about cover and balance. It's a whole different ball game. But it's, if I'm doing out of possession practice, defending practice, in the foundation phase, I would set the practice up, explain it, whether that be whiteboards, demonstrations, and then I'm going to be working with the team that's not in possession. As soon as you mention defending to youngsters, it's almost like we're doing that. But it's setting the practice up. I'm going to be working with the defenders, or the defensive team, or the team out of possession, whatever that might be. But yeah, I'd definitely sway towards in possession. But like Mark just mentioned, it's spend X amount of time without the ball, but everyone focuses, and especially in grassroots, it's about having the ball. If it's a lot of stop, stand still, looking at shape work in the grassroots, you're going to lose that level of enjoyment, level of engagement, all the stuff that's been spoken about in the previous podcast with Mick as well.
And I think you said there, Mitch, wording's important as well. So, going back to me as a player, 8s, 9s, if my coach said we're going to work on possession or defending, then I could feel my body now. My body is just, I feel flat and deflated. Whereas if you word it differently, so who wants to attack and who wants to counter-attack? Straight away, I'm engaged. You've engaged me in the session just by your wording. But it's interesting. Certainly, I need to focus a bit more on out of possession. Even on the courses on my delivery, those that have been on courses with me, I do tend to get towards in possession practices. So that's something I need to look to going forward, is challenge myself a little bit and do a bit more out of possession.
Cool. Cheers.
Good morning. Good question. Gonna go to Liam next. Just let you know, Elliot, I've seen your hand up. We'll come to you straight after. So, Liam, morning.
How you doing? You all right?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, good, man. Good, cheers.
I'll see you answer a couple of questions. Just take your first question first, and then we'll go to Elliot and then come back to you later. But just around the UEFA B going forward, is that right?
Yeah, so the UEFA B, basically, I applied for it this year, on it, but they said there was 174 places for only people applying for 24 places, and the other local FA to me weren't running one. So obviously, going forward, if that's going to be what's like every year, it's potentially going to be 5-6 years before people are getting on them. And where I am, wise, I do it grassroots and professionally. I'm sort of at a level where I can't progress without getting on this course. And every time I ask a question, I get told continue development, but there's not many more courses I can do. There's not much more I can physically do that I haven't done other than just keep doing the same CPD stuff.
Yeah.
Who are you coaching with, Liam, at the minute?
So I coach grassroots. I coach for Aston Clinton, and I'm the development officer there for the club. It's only a small club, and then I work for Chelsea Foundation as well.
Okay.
As well as several other little private the companies that have their own little private stuff on it.
Yeah. So have you applied to us before as a county?
Yeah, I come down and did the Reading one, the Reading CPD event that you had last year, and then I got told I was shortlisted down to like the last 30 people, but then obviously I didn't make it after that.
What age group are you working with at Aston Clinton?
So my done 8s, but I coach every age group from the mini kickers up to the adults.
Rich?
Yeah, I suppose just from a county's point of view. So 3 years ago, the FA basically allowed county FAs to deliver UEFA B courses at a county level, which is one a year. So as you said on your question there, it's 24 places with 150 people plus each year applying. So it's hard, obviously, from a coach's point of view that want to get on the course. We introduced, so probably 12 months ago, Mark, we introduced a different format how to apply. So that included video application, which was optional. So people might be able to add to their application with a video or a coaching CV, whereas before it was very fill out this box and then give us a paragraph. So we've tried to maximise people's applications as much as possible. But completely understand your frustration, Liam. But the easiest thing for me to say is it's continued development, but I appreciate that it will be frustrating. And from a county FA's point of view, again, we would look to run the UEFA B course next year, and the prerequisites have changed since the last course you applied for.
Right.
So if you during this or after this, if you look on the level 3 FA level 3 on the Boot Room website, it shows you what the prerequisites are. So it's completely changed. So the FA youth modules, which was part of the previous prerequisite, is no longer there. It's more about 11 v 11.
Yeah, so you need to be. So if you're working with the under eights, well, you need to establish what team you're working with. So the prerequisites state that it needs to be 11v11, or in the women's game, so tier 1 to 5. RTCs, men's game, step 1 to 7, college teams. And then it eventually go down to sort of 9v9, things like that. So I think, yeah, have a look at the prerequisites, Liam. And then, as Rich said, we're going to be running more courses. I don't know when the next one is planned, actually, but
it's tricky now. But yeah, it'll probably be early next year.
What's going to happen with? Is it better to have? Well, obviously, at the moment, if I'm coaching every age group, is it better just to stick with one then and just go with them, or continue?
You need one. You need yeah. So when you apply, you need to be working with a team that's playing 11v11 primarily. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you're going to have to do a program of work with that team. So you're going to have to do like a project based on that team. You're going to have to work with individuals in the team as well. That'd be the first thing, Liam. Definitely.
All right, cool.
Regarding next year's course, obviously we had planned to. I might have spoken to you via email in previously, but in the summer, so we're starting to open application window. We're going to run a CPD event as a little taster. Obviously, that's going to be put back now, considering the situation. But we will be doing that again. So we'll get in contact with you and all the other applicants that are interested as well to update you in due course.
Yeah, it's also because I might have been yourself that's recommended doing the foot. So I've gone and done that now as well, just to get some more lightning. Actually, it's pretty good. I'd recommend that for anyone that's doing the younger age groups as well.
What was that, Liam? Sorry.
Yeah, what was that?
Futsal. I was recommended to do the futsal level 1 and 2, and I thought it's changed how I'm coaching my younger kids now completely. To be fair,
interesting.
We started this new 3v3 format. It's coming on massive. It was actually growing really big until obviously everything that's happened. I've had to put a stop to it all.
You want to just explain that while you're here? That'd be great.
Yeah, so I started this up my own thing. I was speaking to a couple of the top clubs and their scouts basically, and we come up with this format for 3v3. So it's no goalkeepers, mini samba goals. The pitch obviously varies in size slightly depending on the age groups, but it was only under 9s and below, and so obviously we tend to find that some of the weaker kids tend to hide on the 5-a side and expect the other kids to do it. But on 3v3, they can't hide. They have to get involved. And the amount of times the kids were spending on the ball, the amount of times they were passing, running, doing everything was just through the roof compared to the 5-a side at games.
Interesting.
There's no throw-ins, it's all kick-ins. There's no stoppage. It's just roll on, roll off. As soon as the ball goes out of play, it goes back in. So there's no time wasting. We did mini tournaments, 6-minute matches. 10 games every time, and the kids loved it, the parents loved it, and they all said that they all want to keep doing it rather than the 5-a side.
Interesting.
I think just quickly, if I jump in on that, cheers, Liam, that's a great point what you've made there, and I think that links quite well to Mike Nicholson's question. If you just go back up, you can see it there. How would you plan a season-long sort of under 7s coaching syllabus? Stuff that Liam's just mentioned at that age is as many, small-sided stuff that you can do as possible, making them comfortable on the ball. There's a lot of professional academies that link in real closely with that. Rivo, you done a podcast, I think, a couple of weeks ago with the lady from Reading. Was it me?
Very strange.
Yeah, was it Me and My Ball? Is it? Yeah. Do you want to just elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that links in quite well what Liam was saying and the small-sided stuff.
Yeah, that's part of their own philosophy. It was at the time of Me and My Ball, and I think those kind of things. And they were sort of saying that as part of their philosophy, they want players to be comfortable on the ball in all positions, which in turn needs buy-in from parents as well, because the misconception is that they need to be passing, and you probably hear that from the parks up and down the country as people screaming, pass it, pass it, pass it. Whereas theirs was, we want people to keep on the ball, stay on the ball. We can talk about the other factors when they get to 11, 12, going forward, and introduce other elements. But during that time, it was just stay on the ball.
Cool. Just gonna thanks, Liam. By the way, I'm gonna come back to you about your other question, but thanks for sharing that. Just Mike, you should be able to just. Do you want to elaborate on that question or what you said there?
Yeah, thank you. Our club typically we've got teams from under 7 to under 16, and then we've got an academy, and then we've got a first team. And typically, what happens at under 7s is we hire a brand new coach, we give them balls, bibs, and cones, and then they go and do their level 1 and they start coaching. And that's kind of how I started many years ago. What we're trying to do from next season, though, is to try and formalise some sort of excuse me, coaching syllabus that will support the coaches, both with potentially a UEFA B coach that can help them, but also with help around planning and what the coaching session should look like at that age. Totally agree on the 3v3 and the ball mastery. By the way, Peter Prickett's done a really good book on 3v3 football. Liam, if you're interested, that's a really good book. So I'm just at the moment, I've taken it on for the committee to try and figure out what an under 7 coaching syllabus should be like, and we're trying to essentially look at the England DNA and the future player and work back to an under 7 and try and figure out what an under 7 should be doing in order to eventually become an England DNA player. So just wondered what coaches' thoughts were on what that should look like.
Yeah, just mentioned about the 3v3 stuff. I think, yeah, you're well on the right tracks with the England DNA. You know, you've got the 12 sort of coaching fundamentals that you can obviously refer back to, and you know, shape it around that. But it is, you know, you see a lot of coaches at that level. I went and took my under 10s team to a game about a couple of months ago, and I was looking over on the other side of the field, and you had probably under 6s, under 7s, 20 of them lined up, and they were practicing throw-ins for about 10-15 minutes. You know, and I'm looking at that thinking, surely there must be better things to do with your time. You know, there must be, you know, it was cold, it was windy, and they're practicing throw-ins. And it is as many touches on the ball, stuff like Liam spoke about. They don't even need to worry about throw-ins at that age. Just get them as many touches of the ball. Is it fun? Is it engaging? You know, is it a constant practice all the time where it's passing backwards and forwards? If it is, like Mick alluded to earlier, it might be 5 or 10 minutes and then move it on, because they will drift off. They will become bored. You know, and then you've got you've got to look at the difference within the group, which is tough as well. So, you know, if you're doing a lot of 1v1s and 2v2s, which I would do at that age, you know, you're going to have to look at who you pair with who. You know, so if you've got your strongest player who might have her footballing years might be, you know, 5 years because they started mini kickers when they were 2. You know, you might have the player they're playing against footballing years might be 6 months. You know, because they've just started because their best mate goes, and then it's working out. Well, if I pair them 2 off together in a 1v1, there's no point whatsoever. There's going to be no challenge there. So it's working out, you know, knowing your players, like Rivo said earlier, and matching them off. But as many little fun little games, you know, there's loads online, and you know, if you're looking at the 12 coaching fundamentals, linking it with the England DNA, you're not going to go far wrong. Pete Sturgis as well, as much stuff you can get off him. Online, you know, there's loads on Hive, the boot room, you know, and you won't go far wrong.
Cheers. Thank you.
Sorry, Mike, what's your role there again?
I coach 13s at the moment, but I'm also on the committee for the boys section. So there's 5 of us that look after all of the teams from under 7 to under 16.
Oh, brilliant. No, I just think it's probably worth in that committee coming up with, well, you may have one already, but what is your philosophy? What are your values? What are you about as a team? And I don't think you go far wrong with looking at like a games-based approach. Mitch, we're lucky to have Mitch on here actually, because Mitch is a big advocate for whole part whole, so under 11s. I know I talk about it a lot, but the first thing anyone on this forum now would have wanted to do when they turn up to training was play a match. The kids come up, we're playing a match today. So to go straight into a match at under 11 and you're maximising your time in the random, because my sessions were, when I was a participant, were always very constant based, so very drill based. But as we know, the game doesn't look like that. The game is random. So much time as you can spend in random practices, whole part whole, let's come in, play a game, whether that is in the form of arrival activities where Mike, me and you are first there, so we get going and play a 1v1, someone else joins, there's an overload, 2v1, and we build up that before we then break away to the main practice and then return to the second hole at the end. But that's what mine will be based around, certainly. Something around games based, really. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you.
Mike?
Mark, thanks for your question, mate. We're going to go to Elliot, who's been patiently waiting with his hand up, hopefully not physically, just digitally. Hello, Elliot.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Elliot.
Yes.
You're right. Yeah, cheers. It's actually quite good that I'm last because it kind of links to both the last callers' questions. So my first one was, do you think that we need to rethink the formats of our age groups? Because in my opinion, from what I see in grassroots, I still think we jump to the higher formats too early in terms of, like you saying about technical development. So I don't think that, for example, I coach an under-8s team and they're going under 7-a-side next year, which I think is ridiculous based on the needs of the players at that age. And my other question was, the coaches that have level 1 and level 2s, which are very old, do you think that, because obviously some coaches now will say, oh, I'm a level 2 coach, but they might have done it 10, 15 years ago. So compared to the current course, do you think that they need to maybe have some kind of compulsory refresher so that everyone's kind of on the same page, rather than sort of going, oh yeah, I'm a level 1 coach from 20 years ago, but it's completely different to what, but linking back to the psychology as well, like it's a completely different course. I know it's a lot to answer, but
So really good points, though.
I don't want to make
Really
it
too good points. Go on, Mitch, were you going to say something?
Yeah, Elliot, mate. Yeah, 2 great points. I'd agree with both the ones you've made there. There was a quote, I can't remember who it was by. It might have been Pete Sturgis, that we don't need to rush too quickly to 11v11. And will it be a matter of time before it starts at 3v3? I think so. You know, I think at some point we will go down to 3v3. And the benefits, you know, if you don't currently do it, or any coaches listening, especially at those younger age groups, if you don't do it, you know, give it a try for a good few months, and the development the players make, you know, even the ones that sort of, you know, we talk about that dealing with difference model, the ones that sort of striving to keep up, the amount they develop. I think it was Liam mentioned earlier, because players have to stay on the ball. They can't hide. In 7v7, like I say, when you move up to that, Elliot, you'll get players at the game still by.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. You know, a lot of the stuff. So if I had done a whole session for, you know, any under 16s, 12s, 11s, 7s, 5-year-olds, whole, I'd start off, you know, with 1v1, 2v2, you know, then go into a main practice, and then maybe back into a 2v2 before we go into a 5v5 or something like that, or a 6v6, 8v8, whatever that might be for the age group I'm working with, because there's just so many benefits to it. And you know, even if you are looking at that higher end, at the same time, you know, they're still getting a lot more touches on the ball than they would be, you know, if you're going straight into a bigger format. And your second point around the new courses, I've said it loads of the times on the courses that I deliver. I would love to have done the current level 1 and 2, you know, 17, 18 years ago when I did mine, because the course is just so relevant now. You know, the amount of different people, you know, you've been on the course yourself as well, and the amount of different people from different backgrounds. You know, people come into the room with great footballing knowledge because they might have played or whatever it might be, but don't understand children. You get teachers that come into the room that understand children, but that, you know, don't really get the football element of it. And they, you know, if when they finish that course, everyone's taking something from it, you know, because it is so relevant now. And yeah, you hear it a lot on the courses. A level 1 coach just finished. Do you know what, Mitch? I'm going back into my club, but I'm only assistant because the head coach has got their level 2. And my question would be, well, when did they do it, without, you know, disrespecting the coaching badges? The course is now so much more relevant, and that new level 1 or level 2 coach will have so much more to offer.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at. So it's on paper, somebody might be a senior coach. Is their knowledge relevant to every course that you design is based on the latest research around youth coaching. So someone who's a level 1 or maybe a new level 2 might be more knowledgeable than a UEFA B from 10 years ago, if that makes sense. So it's kind of
definitely. I think when I finished mine, I went straight to an after-school club and was doing crossing and finishing with 5-year-olds because that's what I thought was the right thing to do. Whereas now it's totally different. And yeah, I would agree with you on that one. Rivo, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, really good points. I think the first one about the sort of formats and thing, I think we have come a long way. I think about when I was under 7 and 8 playing 11v11, playing right back and touching the ball probably in a hour game. So I think it does look different. Potentially needs looking at again as we evolve. So that's a really good point. And I think in terms of the courses, that's a great point, and that's something that I hear quite a lot, particularly on the level 1 courses where people and that's one of my favourite courses to deliver. When people come through the door on a level 1, 50-50 split, 50% saying, I've got to do it. I've got no choice. I've got to do it if they come through the door. Versus when they go out the door after workshop 7, and it's just like, whoa. And there's so much detail and content in that level 1 now. When we start looking at the psychological factors, we start looking at things like behaviour management and all that kind of stuff, which just adds so many strings to your bow. And it goes back to the 4-corner point. We can't just focus on that technical box anymore. We've got to look at all the other corners as well. I think the time that Mitch and I spent in the FA Skills programme was invaluable. I've been coaching probably 20 years up until then, and what I learned in a year or 2 years stay with me for the rest of my life. In terms of things like behaviour management, and I heard Mick before talking about shooting practices and the line drills effectively, which I would have done and I would have been a part of. But then you look and think, if I was at the back of that queue, I'm going to be messing about on January the 5th and it's freezing cold. I would have been. So we need to sort of redesign and look at that, because something like that is potential for you to then deal with behaviour management skills. If you haven't got those skills because you've been on an older level 2, which is probably technical heavy, then what do? You probably resort to type, learn behaviours, and we end up punishing the players by sending them around the pitch 5 times and doing press ups and all this kind of stuff. So they're good points, and I think look, if I was in charge of courses, I would like to maybe put in some sort of refresher course, just maybe implementing some of those things that I've talked about there. And I think as a coach, if you've done an old level 2, surely if you want to evolve, then that's something you'd want to go on,
Rivo, thanks for just quickly pop in there. We get Paul Jones in here just because he's says something online. Paul, you there?
Hello there, yeah, I'm here.
Hello, mate. Just saying about the refresher level 1, level 2 courses be online.
Yeah, just sort of agreeing with Elliot, really, but obviously in busy times, and obviously what we're going through in this difficult time at the moment, and not being able to attend classes or go out. So if they could be online, but do we make them mandatory? Because I know someone else had commented saying, the CPD, excuse me, is there to hopefully keep us all updated, but they're not mandatory for people to do. So take exactly what Mark's just said there of, if you do want to be the best coach you can be, is putting yourself out there to develop yourself as a coach as well as your players. I think also if the FA did do something where these things were mandatory, so those that have done them years ago can now sort of get refreshed and get up to date, especially with the psychological side of things. I think that is a big part of the game. I coach an under-14s team this season, coaching for about 15 years now, but done my level 1. I've always been like an assistant and now become a manager. So done my level 1 last year. And it was amazing. Loved it. Really opened my eyes to new things and new ways of working and game-related practices. But we've lost every game this season apart from one that we drew. But the kids still turn up week in, week out to training and games, all because of positivity that I give them in the praise, and I ask them to work hard, and hopefully the wins will come eventually. And yeah, so it's just looking at different ways of working, really, and especially in these difficult times.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's a good point. Sorry, Rick, go on.
Yeah, no, good points, Paul. Good points that you make. Yeah, whether the FA look at something like that, I don't know. I have had one person, it was on a level one actually, he did the old level one, but then booked on a new level one because he'd heard sort of fuss about it, which was not an isolated thing, but it was fantastic from my point of view. And I get the point where, and I've had it probably, you know, after sort of day two on a level one, have got some fantastic resources and some ideas, and they go back to their club, and then if at your clubs you've got someone who's done the old level one or level two, and you come back with all these ideas, sometimes it can't go anywhere. It's like you're hitting your head against a brick wall. So I understand the sort of frustration as well, but I think in an ideal world there would be something where we can all sort of upskill ourselves along the way.
Yeah, and I think probably some of our football clubs could do better as well, and maybe having like mentoring programs for young coaches coming through or new coaches coming into the club, you know, and mentoring them rather than just getting them to do a level one and leaving them to it. You know, hopefully there's coaches out there that want to mentor those young coaches and you know, give a little bit of experience and hopefully, like you say, the philosophy of being positive and fun and safe environments for the kids to develop and play in, I think are really key, and you know, should be adapted by all clubs.
I think you've made a great point there, Paul. If I can just jump in, like you said, the sort of the environment you're creating for your players is brilliant, and you know, I'll pretty much guarantee results or performances will come. Like we talk about the foundation phase. Just moving slightly away from that as well, that a good friend of mine put something up online the other week where, the other day actually, where all the leagues have been cancelled, and people are moaning about it and whatnot. And you know, his sort of reply to it all was, "This is talking about non-league and stuff like that." And he was just sort of said, you know, that for most people it's a hobby, and it will always remain a hobby. And I talk about this on the courses as well, level ones, level twos, even the safeguarding. This is going to be a hobby for a massive percentage of people. You know, some of your players might go into playing non-league and pick up a few quid here and there, but for the majority, it's going to remain a hobby. Whether they go and play, you know, whether they go on and play Power League with their friends, whether they play with their work colleagues on a Wednesday night, whether some of them do want to kick on and really want to progress, which is brilliant, and they might break into an academy, you know, fantastic, but it's just giving them, like you've just mentioned, you know, the good experiences. You know, we're going to try and make each player as best as they can be. Winning is important, you know, don't get me wrong, like, you know, we're not moving totally away from that, but it's how we manage it. And you know, you just said you've been losing every game, but everyone's turning up to training, you know, so obviously you're doing the right things on that front, and I think the tide will begin to turn again. Conversation we have on the level ones too, there's a lot of older coaches stuck in their ways, but it's difficult to try and manage that and get them on CPD. Someone's just put something up. I think it was Mike made a great point. They need to change their mindset. Some coaches don't want to. Some coaches will be in coaching a grassroots team because they have to, and they think, well, I'm doing under 13s. I've only got 3 more years. Then I'm going to stop it. You know, so and the tide will turn. You know, the longer the new courses. I think it's been 3 or 4 years now. 4 years, I think they've been running. You know, the tide will turn. Definitely.
Mitch, that's a great point as well that you make about you know, and some of us coaches, we're all providing a social outlet. It might be just the social side that I'm coming along from. From the age of under 8 when I started playing, my sort of 3 best friends still today, and I'm 44 now, are the ones that we're in the same team together. And we got beat every week, 19-0, 20-0, and we stayed together all the way through. And we've got a group that are still friends today from that team. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right there, Mark. I think, you know, this sort of team that you build, and I've had a lot of kids that sort of go on season from season. A couple have sort of left, but majority have stayed and sort of carry on and still want to develop and improve and play football. And I think, you know, it is, I always say to them, you know, it is like a little family. So you are looking out for each other all the time, whether that's on the field or off the field. It's always trying to stick together and be that team and work as a team all the time. And, there are a lot of behaviour things. I work for Santander and we have our own little behaviours, which, again, I've instrumented into the team, like showing respect, keeping promises, giving support, all these little things that they can do. And that's not just to each other, but to the referee, to the officials, to the coaches. And hopefully it's life lessons as well, not just about the football, but teaching them life lessons that will help them out when they go for job interviews and all that.
Yeah.
And Paul, they're not going to remember getting beat, 5-0 by Caversham Trent all those many years ago. They're going to remember you, the fun sessions, the friendships they created, and all those kind of things. So I think it's a brilliant thing that you're doing. And like Mitch said, it sounds like you provided an excellent environment for them.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
Cheers.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks, Elliot, as well. I'm just conscious of time. I don't want to keep people too long, but obviously you're more than welcome to stay as long as you like to. I'm just getting Liam back in here just quickly because he says about Mike's put about coaches wanting to develop, and Liam, you attended a level 2 as a helper to take part and got to see the lessons as well.
Yeah, so basically I did the old level 2, like 2000 and I can't even remember now, to be fair, 2012, 2015, something like that. And then when they all revamped it, I thought I had a bit of spare time, so I just phoned my local one. It was the RAF one up at RAF Horton. They had the level 2 on.
Yeah.
So I said, look, do you need any helpers to come and take part in a session so your blokes can do the session? And he said, yeah. And I said, can I sit in on the lessons while you're doing it? And he said, yeah. So then I got the new content. It didn't obviously count towards CPD or anything, but I got the new bus, and I got to take part in the sessions to see. So it was just basically my level 2.
That's brilliant, Liam, and that's probably why you're here today on this forum, because you want to kick on and learn and upskill yourself. And Mitch and I were having a conversation off air before this, but some of the times it's the people that aren't coming to these sort of things and CPD events, putting themselves out there and putting themselves in a position to grow, that potentially need this sort of stuff. But that's brilliant.
Yeah, well done, Liam.
Yeah, I think it's easy because it's only, I didn't do every single day with them because I couldn't manage it. But if you can do 1 or 2 days here and there, just get out and get on them, then it doesn't cost anything, because it's not like you have to pay to go to St George's Park or whatever. You just jump on the for a day. You get, it's. I found that was a lot easier than trying to book time or pay to go up and do the actual CPD events.
And I suppose from our county point of view, it's something that we do. So if anyone who's listening now wants to go and have a look at a previous course or a new course, just want to sample half a day, whatever that looks like, just get in touch with us, myself or Rivo, and then we'll organise it for you where possible. So happy to support where possible.
Yeah, we're Paul said earlier about being a family. We are the coaching fraternity. We're one big family, so it's not a secret what we're doing. If anyone wants to come along, get in touch with Rich. But if Bob's still on there, Bob will know from the UEFA, the influx of people that we had sort of coming and observing, whether that was FA tutors or learners that have done a level 2 that have aspirations of doing the UEFA. I think it's an open door, and I know Rich will concur with that. And if anyone's interested, go through Rich. But yeah, we'd love to see you.
Excellent. Thanks, Liam. Actually, just see you got a question here as well from earlier. Apologies for asking before. You've asked about how do you manage a vast difference in ability in the same team.
Yeah, so I've got 2 under 8. So I'm a massive fan of streaming. I believe kids playing with their own ability. I don't like strong kids being mixed with the kids that need a bit more development, because they tend to hide and not develop as they should. But so I've got in my stronger team, I've got 4 or 5 really good pre-academy all players everywhere. Then I've got 1 or 2 that aren't at that level. Sometimes the game will bypass them. They won't touch the ball. They won't go near it. But they're too good to be dropped down a level. But they're also not quite good enough to be at the level they are. I know they're under 8s and they can. I'm not saying that it's all like that's their football done, but the difference in ability. The stronger players can manage it most of the time, and they will. But then every now and then, when we play stronger teams, the weaker players get found out. The kids stop passing to them, and trying to manage that and put the kid into places where he can still enjoy it without realising, because he knows he's not at the level of the rest of them as well. And I'm trying to manage it as best I can, but the difference in ability is so great. How do you manage that? Like,
So again, a good point. It's dealing with difference that comes up on a lot of our courses. It's not easy. I think historically I would have probably split in a session and said, right, the ones that are forging ahead there, the ones that are striving to keep up, go that side. But now I would challenge myself and keep them together and learn about the individuals and challenge accordingly. And I said it on the last podcast that we were on. I think I was guilty previously, a few years ago, of probably just working with the ones that are striving to keep up and spending a bit more time with them. But then those ones that are forging ahead need some challenges also. Otherwise, they get bored. So I had a coach the other day was talking to a player and just said, look, can you complete your next 3 passes? So as a little drive-by or an individual intervention, just a specific challenge to that individual within the session. One I love from Ben Bartlett, I said the other day, was the 1 or more one. That comes up a lot on courses where coaches say, well, he or she's a fantastic player, but they don't pass it. So the first thing I would say is, why do you want them to pass it, depending on where they are in the moment in the game. But then the challenge might be the 1 touch or 3 or more. So recognise when you've got to take 1 touch to pop it off and invite your friend into the play, or when you've got to penetrate and you can have 3 or more, but you must have more. If you have 2 touches, it's a free kick. So 2 different challenges that I could just think of the top of my head there for those players. So it probably comes from us as coaches, just spending a little bit of extra time in the planning stage and scratching our heads a little bit and going, right, well, Johnny might need this, this, and this. If that comes up, there's a couple of challenges I've got up my sleeve. But that's again, that's coaching for me, I think.
Yeah. See, I do that a lot. All my sessions are based split into ability, so the players will go up against their similar ability. Sometimes I strip them. It's more the games on the Sundays.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'll try and give them individual challenges in the game.
Yeah.
They do get found out if they're not physically as quick or something. They do, especially at 5-a-side. Make 1 mistake, and we don't. The parents don't. All the parents are on board, and that is great. But the kid ends up getting frustrated because he does make more mistakes than the rest of them, and we try and. But the ability is just so. In training, we can manage it great. It's easy, but in a game, it's a lot more challenging trying to manage that difference in ability.
Yeah, I would just to jump in there, Liam. I'm with you. You know, I've seen it this times delivering with school teams and grassroots teams and stuff like that, and it is tough. And I always just try and put a spin on it. And you know, what does success look like for each and every individual within your team? And you know, we spoke about winning a little bit on this, and for some players it might be that they just want to win. You'll get the super competitive ones, you know, your stronger ones in the group as well. But you know, what's their challenge? What does their success look like compared to, you know, little Johnny that, like you said, is falling quite behind? What can we do to him? What can you do? What can you set? You know, because it will be totally different. It will be totally different, and it's just trying to work out understanding that player as well, you know, because they might just come because their mate comes, like River mentioned a little while ago, and if it's winning the ball back once, or if it's finding themselves in a position on the pitch, you know, where they shouldn't be, can we guide them to, you know, when that court break comes, you know, next time can you try and find yourself there? Whereas that conversation can be totally different to one of your stronger players. And it's tough. That differentiation is really, really tough. I think you mentioned earlier you coach for a couple of different companies. So, you know, alongside my role with the FA, I go into schools and do PE lessons, you know, so you've got to differentiate between 30 children, which is, you know, if you've done it as well, I know Rivo's done it, that's even more of a gap. In the game time can be tough, but like I say, it's just what does success look like for each and every individual, and don't forget as well, they'll all progress at different rates. They'll all progress at different rates. So a player that you're saying now is not up to the level or gets found out at under 8s might be totally different at under 12s, depending on the information and the sessions you're delivering to them.
Yeah, I get. We try and manage it. We do set them all individual challenges, so they do all get success.
It's difficult. It is.
Every week, if they can, like the other day, they were going goal. The other day, he punched the ball into his own net, which we don't care. It happens, but then he gets so upset about it and worked up that he'd made a mistake, and he can see the others around him not making the same mistakes. And we try and speak to him, and his mum and dad do. I think he's a little bit spoilt as well because he's an only child, which doesn't help the situation. But it's trying to keep him happy in the game, we end up spending 90% of the game speaking to him and trying to keep him happy, and the others just sort of get left out a bit because they get on with it.
Yeah, I think once you've given that little bit of information, spending that amount of time, once you give information, sometimes, move away from that. Then, like we said, a lot of the times those copers get forgotten about because they're sat in the middle. The lesser ones in the group, the ones that are striving to keep up, we're constantly trying to keep up. The ones that are forging ahead, we're still trying to challenge them, still trying to give them information to make them better. You're striving to keep up might receive the ball face on all the time. Whereas the ones that are striving ahead, you might start saying, right, can you get on the half turn? Can you turn without taking a touch so you can run into the space? But it's going to be totally different bits of information.
Yeah. Yeah, cheers. Yeah.
No problem.
Thanks, Liam.
Cheers, Liam.
Good questions today. I'm just conscious of time, but so I'm just going to look at some of the comments. Zing says, don't have a season plan, not sure you can come in for the next training, so sometimes you have to do these sessions again and again. Coaches in China, it's different and difficult. He has his whole team coming for training only before league game. So completely, I suppose, he's having to do everything in one day, doesn't know what teams he's got, players he's got. Gabor says, in my opinion, being rejected from my B course was the best thing that ever happened to me. I definitely want to hear this real quickly, Gabor. If you've got elaborate real quickly on that. Hello?
Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, mate. Yeah.
So, for example, I thought I know lots of things about coaching after I finished my level 2, but being rejected motivated me to learn more stuff. And when I arrived to work with the RTC, I was a wake-up call. Like, I didn't know so many things, and the process now that I'm learning every day, seeing so many sessions, different coaches, how they work and everything, I know I'm very behind. So with my free time and everything, I started learning more and more. So it was the best thing ever happened for me being rejected. Because I invest more time in my learnings. I watch more CPD, more coaches. I learn more, I read more. So it was a good thing.
Interesting.
Thanks, Gabor.
Yeah.
Like, it changed my mindset completely. Like, I thought I know lots of things, so I said, I'm level 2, I know lots of things. But then the wake-up call made me realize, like, I don't know nothing. So I learn more and more. So it's a massive experience. I think being rejected was the best thing ever happened in my life, in my coaching journey as well. At first, I was like upset, but now I'm so happy it did happen. It made me work harder, learn more. So absolutely brilliant. Thank you for rejecting me, actually.
Was it us?
Yeah.
Apologies, but I'm glad that there was
I'm really happy you did.
positives.
I'm really happy.
It was Rich.
It was him.
Yeah, Rich, no, Rich. No, but I'm very happy. Really, I'm very happy you did.
No,
The learning
worries,
now
but yeah,
absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So I'm learning every day new stuff as well, in possession, out of possession, seeing so many coaches, different philosophy, different way of delivering session, the way they ask questions. It's absolutely brilliant.
That's good, Gabor.
Thanks, Gabor.
Yeah, glad there was positivity taken out and to continue your development as a coach. So well done, mate. Keep up the good work. Going to move on to Bob. Let's see if Bob's finished his food from earlier. Bob, are you there?
I'm having lunch now.
You've written a bit on chat, but rather than me read it out, do you just want to elaborate?
Yeah, I think it's more of a reflection, really, of me and trying to understand whether I'm going down the right road, really. I kind of set for my group a very, I'd say, high-performing group, all very high-quality players, I would say very much pre-academy. I've kind of tried to mirror that a little bit and put 4 things at the head of that, really, which is development, fun, winning, performance. And I kind of talk about kind of earning the right to play a lot. When I say a lot, I talk about it because I think it's important in my mind that if you want to be the very best, and that's the road you're going down, and they're all like players that are forging ahead. They all really want, I've got them at the moment. I've got them on a activity planner on a weekly basis. So they're reporting to me over the weekend all their activities this week they're doing from home, and they're all engaging in it. They're all loving it. Just to give you a quick picture, I'm not losing players week to week because I'm so mean, nasty, and horrible. The group is growing considerably. We went one team to two teams last year, and there's probably 3 or 4 people to come in. So it's really exciting and wonderful, but I'm still questioning myself whether I'm focused too much on the kind of performance, the winning, rather than maybe the development is more important in an under 13 group. So that's kind of, a brief.
Rivo, you're right to jump on that. My daughter just ran in, so I missed the first
We'll speak a bit more on the UEFA, Bob, I'm sure. But again, I think it's philosophy and what you're about. But certainly with me at under 13s, it would still be about.
It's happened to me, Mitch.
They know it's time.
It's lunchtime, isn't it? It would certainly be about player development still, if you ask me. But it's not easy, Bob. It's not easy trying to combine all of those things, all those different facets. It's it's difficult. But we can elaborate a bit more on course on that, Bob. That'd be interesting.
Just quickly going to get Elliot in here because he's just sort of saying about player motivations. Elliot. Hello. You all right?
Hi, Elliot.
To what Bob was saying, I don't think that with any team you coach, there's a rule of thumb that because they're this age, you can't focus on winning. If that group are motivated, like he's saying, and they want to be really pushed, and like he said, if they're all buying into it, then maybe that's where they get their motivation, and they do get satisfaction from doing challenges. And other players, like you've already mentioned, might just turn up and just want to play. So if his players are enjoying it and buying into it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with maybe trying to push them a bit more.
Yeah, fair.
Is that all right, Bob?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Yeah, it's I think the self-reflection is the biggest part for me. Certainly as an old git like I am as well, and it's quite hard for me to change old habits really. So this sort of, I try to, as I say, self-reflect all the time. I talk to the parents all the time, try to understand exactly what, they're thinking, what the kids are thinking. And it's kind of a tough environment, but I am seeing the successes in many respects. So the boys are, whether you call it, as you say, success comes in many different ways. And I think a happy boy is a successful boy. A boy that maybe goes into an academy might be success for him. So there's various ways of measuring success.
Good point.
I'm really happy the way things are going, but I think it's important not to be blind to what everyone else is thinking. And you guys, I've got kind of lifetime of knowledge. So for me, anything I can get from that in terms of maybe how I should change
Well, Rich, is that your chair again?
Sorry, mate. I hope it's my chair.
Yeah. Bob, you make some good points, and I think self-assessment and reflections are massive, and that's one thing that stuck with me in recent years is not being afraid to ask the players first and foremost what they think, not being afraid in certain sessions when I can see them going according to plan, just to put my hand up and say, hold on a minute, let me just change and adapt, just so you can get the best out of it. And that's what makes us evolve as coaches, I think. The plan, do, review, the review bit of the plan review is essential, being able to review and ask questions. How can I improve? What did you enjoy? What would you like to continue? What should we eradicate from the practices going forward? And I think that's when you find internal growth.
Yeah, I think, just on that point, not to take up too much of your time, but being effectively a part-time coach, if you like, so hour and a half on a Tuesday and a Thursday and then Saturday, Sunday, it's that plan, do, review. I need some kind of help and guidance how I manage that and make sure that is really, really part of everything I do on an ongoing basis. Because, you finish work and you're racing to the session, and some days I've not even planned it, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I haven't planned anything,
It's difficult, but
time sort of coach has that ability and the time to be able to do that.
Just because we've got one more question that came in before and I forgot to ask it. So thanks, Bob. Appreciate it, mate. And I'm sure we'll follow up again, as Rivo said, on your way for B course that you attended. Jay Lovejoy, he was following on from his question the other day, Rivo, if you recall, around about heading and how it had been advised by the FA not to do any heading in training for under 12s. Let's just see if Jay's there. Jay, are you there?
Yeah.
We followed up after, and you said about Harry Kane's, Ibrahimovic's, Les Ferdinand's, John Terry's, etc. Would have had plenty of heading sessions as part of their fundamental development. What would a next top centre back or centre forward be like? I'm just be interested to talk about it just quickly before we finish.
I was conscious of time last time, so I didn't really follow up on it. But it was just to say I'm pretty sure, like, obviously the older top players definitely would have had heading sessions in their fundamentals. So yeah, what's the next striker or the next centre back, sort of that strong John Terry, put everything on the line centre back? What, where's that going to go?
I think,
yeah. Go on, River, you go first.
Just quickly, I just think the biggest thing I can think of is the game. The game's evolved. So, when we were playing, it would have been 4-4-2, get the ball out to the wide players, get crosses in the box. If you looked at Steve Coppell at Reading when they got promoted, it was an up, back and through. So straight up from the defensive area into the attacking third, set back, out wide, get crosses in and headers and things like that. It's just totally changed now. I think the game's totally evolved. How many teams actually get the ball out wide and get crosses in? We've got half spaces now through Pep and Klopp who operate in those half spaces. So when the pitch is divided up into fifths, it's that one in from the sideline. Operate a lot in there. And Mick talked earlier about the second 6-yard box and things like that. So I don't see it as too much of an issue going forward. If you look at from a defensive point of view, they're having to deal with the ball played into strikers, into 10s, into 9s on the floor now, whereas historically it would have been more up to and beyond. So I think it has changed. I get you. I do take your point. As they get to an age, there's going to be time and reference to practice it, but I do think the evolution of the game has probably put pay to it somewhat.
Yeah. I just wanted to follow up on it really because I didn't really get to.
Point.
Mate, I was just going to say exactly the same. The way the game's changed. Don't get me wrong, there will still be teams. You look at Atletico, the way they played Liverpool the other night. I think Kieran Trippier was throwing long throws into the box, and that was the most sort of Route 1 football I've seen for a long time at that level. And still might happen, but the way the game has changed, and also as well, I'll link it back to the sort of the throwing session that I saw a month or so ago. There's a lot better. There's a lot more important things we can spend our time doing and focusing on heading in grassroots football. That would be my sort of view on it as well.
Yeah. All right.
Does that answer your question, Jay?
It does, yeah. It's just obviously you've got teams like your Burnleys or your kind of everyone always slates Sam Allardyce for doing it, but how are they? I presume those coaches are just going to be grown out of the game.
I think the heading element will just come a little bit later as well, because it will need to, like I say, because heading's not banned. It's just at the younger age groups, but I think it will just come a little bit later, and there still will be. It's me and Rivo spoke the other day about that Atletico Liverpool game. I don't know if you watched it, but obviously Klopp sort of threw his toys out the pram after a little bit, saying they didn't play the right way. But we were talking, and sort of my view on it is that senior football, it is about winning. So contradicting totally what I spoke about, youth football is all about development. Senior football is about winning. So surely the right way to play is to win the game. And that Liverpool game showed that. And it will still happen. It will continue to happen. Do we like watching it? No. I was texting my mate at half time saying this is just like, the centre half was getting it for Athletic and just smashing up the field. But yeah, the heading element will just come a little bit later. And like I said, those in that foundation phase as well, what we spoke about, Mike mentioned, get them as many touches on the ball as they can.
Yeah.
That's what they need at that time. They don't need to be wasting 20 minutes heading the football anyway, and obviously looking at the health side of it as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay. That's all we have time for today. I appreciate it's gone over time, but it's great to see some of you still here.
That's right, we've got nothing to do anyway.
Thanks, everyone. Bob needs his dinner preparing, which is fantastic. He's got 3 meals in 3 hours, which is great. Liam, as mentioned about a futsal coach saying we're potentially 20 years behind the rest of the world. In terms of futsal. So we'll grab that one next time, Liam, if that's all right. Just real quickly, just show you what's coming up. It's not going to work. Hang on 1 second. Apologies. Does it work? Yes. So, again, those who are on the call, they will see it. Podcast, Rivo, looking cartoonish in his picture there. Podcast, it was mentioned a few times. Some great ones on there. If you have a spare 5 minutes, it's probably an hour with the episodes anyway. But yeah, take a listen. Scott Davies is doing the mental health talking tactics live online session on Friday. So he talks about his gambling addiction. Someone who Rivo knows very well. So he'll be talking about his advice around mental health and tasks. Well, the information is on our website to sign up, or just contact me and I'll put you in the right direction. And finally, what's coming up next? The classic. Again, talking so much about coaching, it'd be great just to review an old game. So we thought, why not just start off with AC Milan versus Liverpool, just to get people talking and sharing opinions. That's on Tuesday, 1 o'clock. So if you want to join us, you know where we are. Great to see you and hear some of your opinions. Finally, thanks very much, everyone, for joining us again.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for giving us time. Brilliant.
It's the third one we've done, so it's great to see so many people here. And look after yourselves. Thanks for your messages as well on the chat, and enjoy the rest of your weekends.